Am I live?
We're live.
And welcome back to episode 15.
I think so.
I counted. Okay. As everybody knows, Rob and I always have a quick catch up before we start any of this. And to literally say, oops, they've done it again. They've done it again.
There's a song. I think somebody used to do a meme with that song.
Yeah, please, I'm not a Britney Spears fan, so if somebody can get the song out of my head, it'd be really good. So I'll just quickly read you the headlines of the oops, they did it again. Is a female teacher at a West Australian school stormed into the boys' change rooms and accused them of misogyny because they were too loud. Students at Como Secondary College were on Monday celebrating a lunchtime game of indoor soccer. A Year 11 student who witnessed the incident told the West Australian that the teacher shouted that they were a bunch of testosterone-fueled, misogynistic boys. Now, I'm not going to read the whole lot, but I'll give you the quick synopsis of it now that I've read you that part. Is they were like literally cheering their team on the way we all do.
Prince Harry has launched an extraordinary attack on senior members of...
Okay, sorry. Ignore that. The way you go to, and I've never been to an AFL game, but I know people, men and women, that are quiet little mouses, and they go to the AFL games and they're like, they just go nuts. I'm from New South Wales. I've been to many rugby league games, and as much as I'm not a quiet little mouse, I do go nuts when it's my team. So how is it testosterone and misogynistic to support your team? Let's not even say it's sport, but anything, we've got the Eurovision going. So, and Australia's part of that. So, what's wrong with people cheering on their country or their team or whatever they support? What's wrong with it? Why is it misogynistic?
It's their go-to insult. And I've often argued that the term misogyny is now so widely used as to be almost meaningless.
Well, I think, and I actually said this when I made one of my argumentative comments on the page when I read this on Facebook, is I think you're 100% right. It's a go-to for any type of insult when it's not a feminist narrative. Yep. So I'm misogynistic, and
you can have internal misogyny. You can have internalized misogyny. That's right.
And I'm puppeteered by men because I fight for men's issues.
That's right. You have no agency at all. Exactly.
Yeah.
According to feminists, that's right.
But I think it's a direct insult to use this towards men, towards males. I won't say grown-up men. I think it's towards males, where if the male was to fight back, it's proving their point. Although
that's right.
Not. But it proved to them, it's like, see, I told you, they're fighting back. Typical male.
Yeah. So one of the young boys, and these were boys, not men, that were verbally abused in that manner. One of them, though, they were called testosterone-fueled misogynist, and one of the boys objected to being called a misogynist, and I thought that was just fantastic. Testosterone-fueled, he was okay with. Good lad.
Yeah. I hope a male's full of testosterone, just like I hope females are full of estrogen.
That's right. He's a teenage boy. So
yeah. Now, you said something, and I'm still trying to process what I'm going to say without verbal.
So I'll go and explain that. So first of all, this school we're talking about is Como Secondary College, and I'm going to say it again, Como Secondary College. They've already earned their page on Wiki for Men, along with Brower College and Parkdale Secondary College. So, which are the other two both being in Victoria. So anyway, it turns out that Como Secondary College has some form. So back in May 2020, it's not that long ago, only less than a year ago. So I'll briefly read one news article that was from the WA Today. It said boys aged 11 and 12 were forced to kneel outside on concrete in the middle of the night, holding their pillows with their arms outstretched, and were yelled at if they dared to move after being rowdy at a school camp. This was Como Secondary College less than a year ago. So that was a year 7 camp. So I think they do have a bit of form here for what we've seen recently. But that possibly paints it in a somewhat different light. Now, I point to the fact that these were all boys. Now, granted, boys are more likely to be rowdy, but nevertheless, I really wonder whether any girls would have been put in that situation. I strongly doubt it.
Okay. Miracle upon miracles, I can remember my year 11 camp. And trust me, us girls were more rowdy than the boys.
Okay, fair enough. Yep.
We did what we did to each other. I think we cut off one girl's rat's tail. This was the 80s. Rat's tails were popular. Yeah. But we were cutting off rats. I mean, not me personally, I'm sweet and innocent, but we were cutting off rats' tails and shaving eyebrows. Yeah. We were shaving eyebrows and everything. Trust me, we were pretty rowdy. And this was in the 80s when, girls are sweet and innocent, like me.
Yes.
But
sugar and spice and everything nice.
Yeah, this is what we did 5 years ago. So I can't imagine the girls have gotten timid in the last that many years.
Possibly the opposite. But in any case, it was the boys for being rowdy that were out on the concrete at night, holding their pillows out, which really sounds entirely inappropriate for children, let alone adults being forced to do anything like that. So I'm surprised more didn't happen with this at the time.
I have a okay. I need to put a disclaimer here. I'm not. I love my son to death. I do not regret in any way, shape, or form having a child. But I'm not a child type person. I haven't got that wanting to have a child. What I find difficult is I hear kids screaming in a shopping center and I'm just like, oh my God, shut that child up. But I also know kids will be kids. You can't sit down to dinner and say to the child, children are to be seen and not heard. I do support cafes where they don't allow kids into the cafe under a certain age, because there are people that want to go in there and just have a quiet cup of coffee, read the paper, and don't want to have kids running around screaming. I support those cafes. But also, if I walk into a McDonald's, I also expect to have rowdy kids.
Yes, don't expect to be too quiet.
Exactly. So if there's a school camp going on where there's kids of a certain age, I'm not going to sit there and chuck a tantrum over them being kids. And
so it's a big concern.
It's not a girls thing. They're being kids.
Yes, exactly. So it's a bit concerning what we're seeing here. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this from Como Secondary College. The teachers had a talking to, apparently. That may be the end of it. They may not get much more than a bit of a chat from the principal.
Why is it? if it was a male teacher, if it was a male teacher walking into the female change rooms, would be in jail.
And on the sex offenders registry, exactly. That's right. Yep.
What's the difference?
So rest assured, from our perspective, we're not going to forget. As I said, they're on Wiki for Men. And, this is the type of thing we need to follow up with as well. We do follow up with quite a lot of stuff, but I think we need to add this to the list and follow up the school and see what happens.
Nothing's going to happen. It was a female teacher. Just like it was a female principal and just like it was a female council worker. There's going to be a slap on the wrist and say, there's a golden pathway. We're still going to treat you like royalty because we don't want the feminists against us.
Exactly. So this does somewhat lead into another topic I was just going to bring up briefly, and that's testosterone, which interestingly enough has been in the news quite a bit, what with toxic masculinity and whatnot. We hear about it a lot. Testosterone-fueled accusations, for example. But there's something really interesting going on. So I've actually been following this since the 1980s. So sperm counts and testosterone levels in men have really been declining. And this is true in the West, and it seems to be true more broadly. When it was first reported back in the 1980s, it was dismissed because most of the data was coming out of fertility clinics because that was the only place they were routinely checking sperm levels, for example. And they said, well, these are people who are already having fertility problems, so it's probably some sort of observer bias, and it's not really a big problem. But we know better now. It is a problem. Sperm levels and testosterone levels are dropping across the male part of the population, and there's some guesswork going on as to why that is. Plastics release a type of pseudoestrogen, and they think this may have something to do with it, but there's no definitive answer at the moment. It is a concern. It may be related to. We also there's all globally at this point. There's the population, the fertility rate is dropping. It may be related to that as well. So there may be the rumblings of quite a serious problem, and not much is being talked about. And I must admit, despite the fact I've known about this, this is not something I've mentioned probably as often as I should have. And going forward, I'll be mentioning this a lot more and raising it because it's time for governments to look at this seriously, see what's going on, put the research behind it, figure out if it's plastics or something else that's causing it or a combination of factors, and address it. Because, and I'll say it again, I said at the March for Men, women will not be better off in a world where men have failed. If men are less manly, then I think we'll find that women will suffer too. So it's quite a problem, not being taken seriously, despite the growing body of evidence.
We've got a couple of minutes, but I'll agree with you here, with the understanding that gender is fluid. The new terminology of it. I'll support that, but I also 100% agree that if I'm walking down the street and I get attacked by a male, I feel the only one that's going to rescue me is a male.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, and I'll clarify my position. I mean, there are characteristics that are generally recognised as male, characteristics that are generally recognised as female. It's not either or, and it never was. And I don't think many people ever claimed that was the case. But they cluster. So most people tend to cluster into one of two groups that we generally call male and female. There are other people who don't cluster into those groups, and I don't think that's any great surprise to anybody, and certainly not part of this recent movement. I mean, I've read about intersexuality, for example, which is not very well defined gender since I was a teenager. I was quite interested in that when I was a teenager. The idea that there might be people who don't have well defined genders. So that's something that science has recognised for a long time. So I call it bimodal, if I can use a term from statistics, where there are two of these. If you think about it, there are two sort of humps, and people cluster into one or the other. We call those male and female, but not everybody fits neatly into those packages. Some people are actually a bit on the extreme one way or the other, and some people are in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I'd expect from nature, in all honesty, because nature is not neat, and it doesn't fit you into a neat little box. Well, not everybody. It doesn't fit everybody into a neat little box.
No, but as you said it, I think if you're going to use the terminology humps, and I think it's actually a great terminology for it, but the female, and let's face it, I'm a very masculine female. I don't have a lot of dresses. I love wearing my jeans, but I do have long hair. I do my nails. I've always, whenever I've done the show or I go to work, I've got makeup on. Trust me, I don't do it working from home. But if I'm going out, I always make sure I've got makeup on. So I'm still got that feminine side of me. But so I'm still part of that hump, and I know a lot of men that go to the hairdressers more than I do and get manicures and pedicures and all that, but they're still very masculine. I think the ones in the middle is like literally the valley. Like,
exactly. It's a valley. That's right.
They're the valley.
That's right. Right, it's a relatively small group of people, but I don't think there's ever been any serious, certainly from scientists, there's never been any serious denial that there are some people that do not have a well-defined gender. That's quite clear, and has been, at least it's been recognised for many decades.
And
absolutely.
Okay, we've gone over the 15 minutes, but I do want to say, stop doing it at schools. Leave our frigging kids alone.
I agree. Absolutely, that's it. They're children. That's right. It's interesting, actually. Yeah, I wonder if she would have screamed the same thing at an adult man, actually, calling him a testosterone-filled misogynist into his face. I suspect that might be less likely.
Yeah, but stop attacking our boys at school, and B, we'll see you in another month when they do attack our boys at school.
I wonder what's next. Exactly. Thank you very much, Nat. I think it's been a good episode.
All good. So click like, subscribe, both to mine and Rob's channel. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.